expecting from economists suggesting that will be the case, or are you just getting ahead of what might happen when the bill passes?
I mean, I'm just getting ahead of that. Like, there were those announcements. You said, like, they didn't have the intended effects, but utility companies did say, hey, we can pass on this lower rate to consumers through their utility bills. And
have utility companies said, I have not seen it if they have, that they would raise the cost if this bill passed to invest in infrastructure and get lead out of the pipes to make sure there's clean drinking water and create millions of jobs?
I'm not aware of any specific announcements like that, but I'm just saying that was one of the results that occurred after the 2017.
Well, then I don't think we have to anticipate it as an issue quite yet.
888-971-SAGE. 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are ReliefFactor.com studio. That was Jen Psaki asked about the impact of the corporate tax hikes that the Biden administration intends to pursue, what impact that would have on middle-class families. And she says it's not a concern. Is there some sort of economist that says that we ought to be concerned about that? So I thought we would check in with an economist, find out whether or not there ought to be some concern about that. Lee Ohanian is professor of economics at UCLA. He's an advisor to the Federal Reserve of Minneapolis. Has previously advised other Federal Reserve banks. A frequent guest on the Larry Elder Show. Please welcome Lee Ohanian, a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford and professor of Econ at UCLA. Professor, as always, thank you very much for coming on.
Larry, it's always good to join you.
Professor, she challenged some economists to tell her why a hike on corporate taxes would affect the middle class, because she hasn't seen any studies that say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just mind-boggling.
It is.
It just is. I was just aghast when I saw that video. There's just widespread agreement among economists, and across almost everyone, certainly I talk to, that you have to have a competitive corporate tax rate. And one of the most important policies Trump implemented when he was president was to bring the corporate tax rate down to the level that prevails in Europe. And the consequence of that was a lot of capital coming back into the U.S. and much faster economic growth. Under Trump, the economy expanded at about a 2.5% annual rate. And compare that to Obama, the growth rate under Obama was only about 2.1%, and I calculated that average leaving out the disastrous first year of his presidency, which was 2009. So that was more than a full percentage point more of growth because of the policy of making our corporate tax rate competitive with Western and Northern Europe. So it's just absolutely silly to say that there won't be any adverse consequences on the middle income earners from pushing that corporate tax rate back up to the level it was before Trump became president.
I'm talking to Professor of Economics at UCLA, Lee Ohanian. Professor, it'd be one thing if this is just Jen Psaki saying this, of course, but this is the view of at least half the country.
Yeah, it's very discouraging because there's this view that you can raise taxes on corporations or raise taxes on the high earners, and there won't be any type of repercussion other than on that narrow set of people or organizations that are being directly affected. And what we've learned after decades of economic research is that when you tax capital, those who pay are workers, and those who pay are the consumers that buy the products of those corporations. Capital moves, jobs get lost, jobs move overseas. Even under Obama, there was widespread agreement that we had to get the corporate tax rate down to be competitive with those countries in Europe. And it was supposed to get done with Boehner. And then, long story short, Obama backed off of that because he received too much criticism from within his own party. But there was widespread agreement. We had to do that. And now reversing course on this is really one of the worst policy decisions I think that President Biden and his colleagues can make.
Professor, what about the $1.9 trillion so-called COVID relief package? What's your take on that? Here I am stuttering.
People are just throwing around trillions of dollars as if it's nothing, and sending checks to to households earning $150,000, and in an economy with about 6% unemployment, which is roughly the average rate of unemployment in the post-World War II period. It's just not going to have the effect nearly that's what's being advertised. It's driving up our debt to unprecedented peacetime levels. And our children, our grandchildren, are going to be the ones who are going to have to pay this debt off. And 50 years from now, they're going to be thinking, what were those nuts back in 2020 thinking when they took out $2 trillion to pay for these silly ideas? That's what it's going to be. I don't know really of anyone I talk to, the economists I talk to, I know no one who supported that bill.
Professor, when I talk to people about debt and I talk about how much debt has been piled on for your children and grandchildren, I think people's eyes just glaze over, Professor, because no one's getting a bill. No one is getting some sort of demand to pay anything. So I don't think people really feel it. I think they feel it's a bunch of eggheads talking about something that's down the road. Meanwhile, I got to pay the bills, put some food on my table, and I want to take a vacation. I'll worry about that at some other point.
Yes, sadly, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this is far enough down the road that people simply just aren't connecting to it. As you pointed out, they want to have the dollars in their pocketbook right now. They're not thinking about future generations. They're not thinking about how our economic efficiency and innovation and the jobs that can be created even 5 or 10 years from now are going to be negatively affected by these policy changes. And I think they're buying into a lot of hype coming out of Washington that this is really what the country needs, and it's absolutely not what the country needs. We need to be reducing debt. We need to be encouraging investment. Raising capital, raising corporate taxes does not encourage investment, does not encourage innovation, it does not encourage entrepreneurship. These are the things we need to be incentivizing, but we're putting policies in place that do the exact opposite.
Professor, just about 45 seconds left. I was on Fox and Friends once, and I said in 1900, government at all three levels took less than 10% from the American people. And we had years of 5 and 6% growth. And I got fact-checked, and they said that I was right. Professor, I don't think people have a clue the amount of growth we could have in this country if government weren't so large and wasn't taking so much money from productive citizens.
No, that's absolutely right. That is absolutely right. And people forget that government is just an organization made up of ordinary people, but there's no profit motive to constrain them. There's no profit motive to incentivize them to be efficient. But they view it as some type of magic elixir that can create growth. Well, there's no growth that comes from anywhere other than private people who are creating and private corporations who are investing and who are innovating. That's where all the growth comes from, and government just takes that away.
Professor, we're going to leave it there. Please tell me that Joe Biden called you to become his Secretary of Commerce.
Professor, I think he must have lost my number, Larry.
Thanks, Professor.
Absolutely.